Right. Jane, it's great to have you on the podcast today. How you doing?
Great. I'm great. Super. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. I'm really grateful to have you on. And I just kind of thought I'd introduce you, kind of talk about what you do because you're into like, helping other people develop, and you've got a background, where you used to work in like is it like a laboratory science? You got a degree in laboratory science, and you kind of mix
Correct.
that with physical health as well. And, how did you kind of get into what you do? And can you explain a little bit more?
Okay, sure. So my story actually goes back quite a long ways. When I was 11, I was body shamed, and that cost me 10 years of my life. It wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I realized there has to be a better way to live than this,
Mm.
because I didn't like who I was. I didn't let anyone into my inner circle. I wouldn't go into anyone else's inner circle. I felt very isolated and alone and angry, and I needed a change. So I took the education that I had, being a clinical laboratory scientist, and the work that I had done as an athletic trainer with athletes. And I married those two educations together to create a wellness plan that I started for myself. And I had great success with it. I not only transformed my body and stopped living those shaming words that that boy spoke to me in sixth grade, but I also transformed my mindset. I transformed and became somebody that I really loved. And so that's kind of where my story started. And then as time progresses, we think that health is all about what our physical bodies look like. I call it the vanity. We're just only concerned with the outside of our body. But as I continue to go down this wellness journey with a lot of other people, I realized that health was more than just what our outside bodies look like, because there was a mental component to it as well. And so many people suffer from brain fog and lack of energy, but yet they might be eating well and working out, but they still are experiencing brain fog and a lack of energy. So I did some more research and studying on these things, and I found that health was, it encompasses recovery, emotional energy, in addition to nutrition and movement. So this is the plan that I have, that I work with my clients right now, so that they can not only have the vanity or the physical bodies that they want, but they can also keep away disease states. They can have a brain that's not sitting in a fog. And not to mention that all of these things are very helpful if we're trying to reduce the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's, which is increasingly on a rise. So that's kind of where my story has started.
It's definitely awesome, like the work that you do and how you've been able to shift and change where you was and what was going on for you. And I think like that can be something that I think a lot of people sometimes deal with, that body shame and body dysmorphia and all of these things. Sometimes probably growing up or certain experiences, or how they think about themselves. And I think it's great that you've been able to shift that, and you develop something where you can help other people and tap into these areas, because as you mentioned, it's not just like that vanity side. It's that how you feel mentally and emotionally, and your energy in your body, and really kind of getting to know your health and liking yourself, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Learning to love yourself, learning to like yourself is, I think, the biggest piece of this. Because if you don't like who you are, you're not going to be motivated to make any of the other changes necessary to optimize your health and become a better version of who you are.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely important, isn't it? And it's like, that relationship that you have with yourself, it then, then relates to other people and how you are with other people, and it just connects in so many areas. And I think that's, someone I was talking to before we start recording was, you have like these four pillars, and we'll go through each one, but like it's recovery, emotional energy, nutrition, and movement. And all of these things all interlink, and it's like if one can't work without the other, can it really? Like, do you want to talk, should we go into like recovery, as the first pillar, like why that's important?
Okay, so recovery is the first pillar. And a lot of times people think of recovery as only sleep, and sleep is a big part of it, but there's other components that play into that. But if we just take that pillar recovery and think that using sleep, if you are not sleeping enough hours or getting quality sleep, then that affects the other pillars, because emotional energy, you don't have the patience or the bandwidth to deal with maybe annoying coworkers, a spouse, or kids at the end of a day. I mean, you're just emotionally spent when you don't have the energy from being rested. It affects the nutrition piece, because when your body is not rested, your body is craving energy from other places. So then you might turn to foods that are not really the best sources of energy, but you just want something quick. And that's when you reach for those snack foods that really don't nourish your body, but just give it that quick hit of energy, and that's it. And then again, if you're not sleeping, if you are not getting enough sleep and you're not recovered, then you might be lacking the motivation to really put movement into your day. So that's just one example of how one pillar can affect the other pillars. They are all intermingled together like that. But that's just one example of how not getting enough sleep or getting quality sleep can affect those other pillars. I had one client that I worked with where she told me that, oh, she was getting enough sleep. She was getting 7 hours of sleep every night. But then she told me that she was going to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and waking up at 9. And this is during COVID time. So she was working from home, and, so it was easy for her to get up out of bed and be sitting at her kitchen table working in her pajamas with, bedhead and everything else going on. And I said, the 7 hours is good, but in order to really get good quality sleep, you need to be in bed by 10 or 11 o'clock, because our bodies go in and out of deep sleep, which is one of the sleep stages. And it only does this, and it's tied to the circadian rhythm. So it's tied to the rising and the setting of the sun. But that happens primarily between 11 at night and 2 in the morning. And this is important because deep sleep is the only stage of sleep where our bodies recover, where our muscles actually repair from everything that we put them through the day before, and our brains detoxify. When we go into deep sleep, our brains actually, they've done testing now that shows that our brains actually shrink by 60%, and then they expand. And this pushes cerebral spinal fluid through our brains to clear out the toxins and the garbage. And if we're not doing this, we set ourselves up for cognitive disorders. We set ourselves up for brain fog. And so even though you might be getting 7 hours of sleep, if you are not allowing your body to sleep when it should be cycling through deep sleep, you are not recovering. And it's as simple as that. So the first tip I would give people is to try and work their sleep cycle back to a point where they're sleeping by 10 or 11 o'clock so that their bodies can be rested and be recovering and be detoxifying during their deep sleep.
Wow. It really does highlight how important, sleep is, doesn't it? And how, like a lot of people sometimes may kind of abuse that side of it, where they're getting into bad habits or sleeping at certain times and not getting the sufficient sleep. And what you mentioned, how the body, the brain, expand, does in the size changes and these processes kind of come into play. And it kind of makes me think back to when I used to go out, as a teenager partying, and I would go to sleep past that time. And okay, yes, I was drinking, but it was the tiredness side of it, and it just shows you, like if you're skipping those stages, it's just going to cause so many problems, like over time.
Right, right. There are so many unintended side or consequences
Yeah.
when you don't get that sleep. Now, I'm not saying that every single night, 100% of the time, you need to be in bed by 10 o'clock, because that's
Yeah.
not realistic. And Adam, as you know, life happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I work with clients is we don't work on perfection. Perfection is a great goal, but it's not always realistic. So I do what I call the 3 C's. You need to be consistent, you need to be creative, and then you need to give yourself compassion. So to be consistent, if you can start with a 70%, 30% rule. So 70% of the time, can I be in bed by 11 o'clock, by 10 o'clock? And then maybe once that becomes habit, can it be 80% of the time? And that would be a great goal to work towards. When maybe that you don't hit that mark, then you need to be creative. Okay, I can't get in bed by 10 o'clock. So what creative ways can I sleep a little bit longer then, so that I can feel more rested in the morning? Even though I might not be hitting all of my deep sleep window, can I sleep a little bit longer to feel more rested? So applying some creativity there. And then when you can't hit all of that deep sleep window, when maybe the 70-30 isn't working for you, again, life happens. So you have to give yourself some compassion. You have to give yourself some grace and say, you know what? I didn't hit my mark today, but that's okay. Tomorrow is going to be another day. You're aware of what your mark needs to be. And when you are aware, then you can work towards hitting it. If you don't even know what times you should be sleeping, then it's hard to really optimize that.
Mm. Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's definitely important, that we, look after our, our bodies and our minds, our energy. And I think, like, sleep has a big part to play in that, as you mentioned. And I think, they're finding out, more statistics, like globally, like with Alzheimer, certain conditions based probably on prolonged, like, would you say, like sleep deprivation? Would you think that that's all kind of linked to it?
Oh, absolutely. So 5% of the population is wired to run on less than 6 hours of sleep. Only
Mm.
5%. And the rest of us, the other 95%, we need anywhere from 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And this is adults, because of course kids need more
Yeah.
sleep. But so many people like to wear the shortened sleep cycle as a badge of honor. So they like to say, yeah, I get 3 hours of sleep every night. Okay, that's great. We'll see you in the nursing home in memory care
Yeah.
in about 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to be here living in my own home, able to take care of myself,
Mm.
and you're going to be in memory care,
Yeah.
because all those toxins and plaques that are in our brains,
Mm.
that person hasn't been able to get into deep sleep where they can be flushed out. And
Mm.
then over time, that creates inflammation in the brain. And inflammation in the brain is the precursor for dementia and Alzheimer's.
Gosh, it's so important, isn't it? Like a lot of the things that you're talking about, like I didn't know, like this is like new to me. So it's for me, it's making me aware of like me wanting to try and take care of myself and my sleep, probably better and in the future as well. But I think like it's so important, isn't it? Because it all kind of links in so many areas, and you think to yourself, well, if it's going to cause all these problems, then maybe if someone is abusing themselves in that way, then they should change their course to do something different so they can live more efficiently, and not experience probably any of these issues that we're talking about.
Right.
And sorry.
And the difficult thing is, it's not like a light switch. Like all of a sudden, one day you're going to bed at 10 o'clock, and then the next day you decide, okay, today I'm staying up until 2, and that's my new pattern. It's 10, and then it's 10:30, and then it's 11 and 11:30. So it's a slow fade to that point. So in order for a person to have success, it needs to be a slow fade back to that point. So if you're someone that's used to going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, if I started telling you, all right, starting tonight, you need to go to bed at 10, you might not have success with that. So we need to incrementally bring your bedtime back to that 11 o'clock or 10:30 point, so that you could be getting deep sleep.
That's it. And I think I can kind of relate. I mean, I remember when I used to work in a hotel one time, and the shift patterns would sometimes be I'd be getting up at 8 or 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, in the morning, whatever, to go to work, whatever time. And then when I was on breakfast, I'd be getting up at 6 o'clock. So you're going from going to bed or getting up at whatever time, and then you're throwing yourself into this whole new time period. And I remember just feeling so kind of worn out because my body wasn't used to it. And
Right.
it's those little adjustments, as you said, those small adjustments, just tweaking yourself into it, not just throwing
Right.
throwing yourself into getting up at a different time.
And that is something that's very difficult for people that do shift work, for people that work from 11 at night until 7 in the morning. That it's a really difficult thing for their bodies to adjust to. And you do see those people over time, it really wears on their bodies. So and if you're in a situation where you've got that shift work and you can't avoid it, then this is where you get to be creative then, okay, and give yourself a lot of compassion. So get the sleep that you can, but fortify your body then in other ways. Making sure that you get a lot of sunlight, making sure that you get hydration, making sure that you get real food. And when I talk about real food for nutrition, I'm talking about something that has grown from the ground or that's had a face.
Yeah.
If it didn't have a face at one point, if it didn't grow from the ground, it is not real food.
Yeah.
It's not going to nourish your body. And if you are somebody that you have to work shift work, then you need to be a lot more focused on your nutrition. You need to be a lot more focused on the healthy fats. And people don't understand the difference between a healthy fat and an unhealthy fat, but that can be very important as well, because unhealthy fats like canola oil, first of all, have you ever seen a canola plant?
Not really.
No, they don't exist. So canola oil is manufactured, and when it's originally manufactured from rapeseed oil, which is an omega-3, which is good until they decolorize it and they deodorize it through chemical processes. That takes an omega-3 oil and it turns it into a trans fat, which is plasticizing in the body. It hardens the arteries, and it also causes inflammation, not only throughout the body, but also in the brain. So if you are somebody that's working shift work, you have to pay special attention to the nutrition that you're taking in, the healthy fats that you're taking in so that they
mm,
fortify your brain and don't cause inflammation, and then also to movement,
mm,
because you need, your body loves to move. And
mm,
that's another way to just, when movement is done where it's not overloading your system,
mm,
it can be very beneficial in creating homeostasis, which is a state that your body likes to be in, where it's even, where it's all balanced and working well.
mm,
So if you are a shift worker that's preparing for a marathon, something's got to give.
mm,
Okay, you're because you're not finding optimal rest for your body, and then you're pushing the limits on the other side.
mm.
So those are just some things to consider. If you can't get the recovery that you need, then that's when the other pillars really, really have to
Mm.
be focused on.
Yeah. I think they're really great points. And I think, as you mentioned, like, being creative and finding ways, to look after yourself if, like you said, you can't sleep at certain times because of shift work. There's your diet, your health, sunlight, and these things that you can still get to, to help yourself. Which I think is definitely key. And like, like looking at what food you eat and the oils in the, those foods, like, a lot of foods out there are kind of processed, and, eating the right nutrients and things like that. And do you think that kind of like links as well into like emotional energy? You know.
Oh, emotional energy is huge, because again, when you're not rested, you tend to have a shorter fuse. Okay, you tend to be, sometimes you're not as present with the people that you're with, sometimes you have less patience, sometimes things can tend to annoy you. So the emotional energy piece, one of the tools that I like to give people is when they are feeling overwhelmed, when they're feeling frustrated or angry or negative, just when a lot of times people might have these negative thoughts that run through their brain. They're called ants, automatic negative thoughts. If you are aware of yourself and you have these automatic negative thoughts that are running through your brain, which again, you can be predisposed to because you're not allowing your body to rest and recover. If you have these ants running through your brain, then I suggest you take out a journal and you start journaling things that you're grateful for. Don't start journaling all the negative, unhappy crap, because then that's where you're going to live. So start journaling all the things that you're grateful for. Because here's the thing, Adam, you cannot be grateful and angry at the same time. You cannot be grateful and negative, grateful and frustrated. So let the gratefulness win out and squash those ants, all those negative, angry thoughts that are running through your head by using journaling.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great exercise you mentioned, and how, like gratitude and feeling grateful, you can't really be grateful and angry at the same, like you said, at the same time. And just kind of, being aware of your thoughts, and, being grateful, and journaling and writing, those down. I think that's, it kind of brings you back into the moment as well. I mean, it kind of, makes you appreciate, doesn't it, like what you have, and kind of gives you like a different perspective on things.
Absolutely. And it doesn't, don't, you don't need to journal all the big things that you're grateful for. There's so many little things that you are grateful for that, living in such a busy, distracted world, we don't even notice or
Mhm.
we take for granted. So being sure that you dig deep and you don't just journal the big things that you're grateful for, but journal all the little things that you're grateful for as well.
Mm. Yeah, that's it. That's really powerful. And I think, like you said, it's not just those the big things, it's those small things, isn't it? The things that sometimes we may kind of get distracted by, or not really think about. I mean, I did a gratitude journal the other day, and I thought to myself, like, water, the water on a tap, clean running water, and something that we probably don't think, some things like that,
Right.
or your surroundings, isn't it, or people in your life. It's really powerful, and like you mentioned, like one of the other pillars as well, like nutrition as well, like nutrition and how that has like a part to play.
Oh, yes. Nutrition. I think the piece of nutrition that people miss the most or don't quite hit the mark on the most is hydration. Hydration is so important. Hydration can elevate your mood. It clears toxins and things from your body. Every cell in our body needs hydration.
Mm.
And a lot of times people have gotten away from just drinking water, and they need to have something in their water. They need to have flavored water. They need to have these waters that have been, processed or have chemical additives to them. And it would be a good thing if people could slowly move away from that, because
Yeah.
our body just wants water.
Mm.
And a lot of people ask me, well, how much water? Well, that really, every person is different. I would say of course, everybody hears 8 glasses of water a day, right? But it depends on your body size and the environment that you live in. And if you're
Mm.
working out, there's a lot of things that can contribute to that. So my standard is you need to drink enough water so that when you go to the bathroom, your urine is clear.
Mm.
If it is yellow or dark yellow, you are dehydrated.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely notice a difference in myself if I'm not hydrated or if I don't drink enough water. I don't feel myself. Like my thinking isn't clear, and I notice it. And if I'm hydrated, and I think when you start drinking water, you kind of like become more aware of it. You say, you think, you become aware, or you kind of have like a little reminder in your mind saying, "Oh, I need to drink now," or something like that. I think
Right,
I
right.
I used to work with somebody and they just never used to hardly drink water. And they were busy in their job and what they were doing. Like, I was in the kitchen as a chef, and he would always drink a lot of coffee or tea. And yes, tea has water in it, but it's caffeine. And I would always try and say to him, "Do you want a glass of water?" And he'd go, "I'll have a coffee." And I'm like, "Okay," but but it's I think sometimes people, like you said, they will have flavored water or this. Um, in the UK, we have something called smart water. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Yep.
And they say it contains electrolytes. I mean, I don't know if that's as good as normal water. I don't know, but I think sometimes people will have like flavored water, and people sometimes don't like the taste of water. So there's all these kind of areas, like you said. But I think, like, your body just does want that water. It just wants normal water, nothing that's
Right,
being
right.
um, tainted with anything.
Correct. Yep. So, and drinking water too, um, not only does it flush things out of your body, but even being 5% dehydrated brings on fatigue. And tiredness is one of the things, other than brain fog, tiredness, being fatigued is one of the most common complaints that I hear.
Hmm. Do you think that people should like this should kind of be in the curriculum or something like that? The things that we're talking about. Do you think, like, because only because like with health and all of these things, they're so important. You'd think that they would kind of teach it people. If that make, like compulsory. If that makes sense.
Well, you know what? I think that they do try and tell people that they need 8 glasses of water a day, but then you have food manufacturers that are
Yeah,
coming in with their um, their flavored waters. And,
yeah,
and so there's a couple things with that. Number one, it's not readily available. Your tap water is readily available. I mean, tell
mm,
me the last time you were in any place where you couldn't get a glass of water.
yeah,
But if you are now thinking that the only water I can drink is water that's been flavored or water that has electrolytes in it, then you might opt for no water until you can get your flavored water.
Yeah.
And coming back to the basics and just saying, you know what, I just need water. I don't need
Mm,
to have the flavored water. And I'm going to step up on my soapbox for a minute and talk
mm,
about the waters that come in the plastic bottles and all the chemicals that are leached from the plastic into the
yeah.
water that we consume. They
Mm,
are hormone disruptors and they're horrible for our body. They're called xenoestrogens, and they confuse the body and they confuse the cascade of hormones that needs to be in a symphony in the body. And it's all from the plastics that are, or it's all from the chemicals that are leached
yeah.
out of the plastics in all the bottled waters that we drink.
God, shocking. That's crazy. We I've seen a few articles recently talking about things like this and plastics and the chemicals and packaging and all of these different things, as well as like the things that are actually in the foods. It's it blows my mind how some companies are allowed to do that, but it's it's one big business, isn't it? It's a massive
It
business
is.
where they're making a lot. But I think it's great that in the work that you do, you are kind of going against that and helping people get away from that. In what you do, you help people live their lives and make these changes and not you know to to hop out from going to drink bottled water, or to get out of these bad habits and to live a more fulfilled life where they're not going to probably be tempted to eat or drink certain things that are bad for them.
Right, right. And so again, here is where the three C's have to play in. So if you're somebody that's been drinking water, flavored water, whatever it is, and you routinely only drink from the plastic bottles, then I
Mm,
would encourage you to hit that 70-30%. So
yeah,
that maybe 70% of the time you're drinking water that's been filtered and it's not been
yeah,
sitting in a plastic bottle where it's had chemicals leached into it. And then that 30% of the time, then okay, I'm at the airport or I'm traveling. So you have to grab that bottle of water that's in a
yeah,
plastic container. You know what? And that's where you have to give yourself the compassion then and say, okay,
mm,
this isn't a forever for me. This is just a right now as I live my
yeah,
life, as I travel. This is what I need to do to get my water in. It's
yeah, yeah,
important
yeah,
that I get my water in because I can I can get rid of those toxins when I go back to just drinking clean filtered water rather
mm,
than continuing to drink from the bottled water.
yeah. That's it. There's all these other areas where you can go back to looking after yourself, isn't there? And
Right, right. As long as they don't slide into a habit.
mm, mm,
So if you've gotten to the point where maybe 50% of your water is coming from filtered and 50% is coming from the bottle, and then you've been doing some traveling, so then 100% has been bottled water,
yeah,
then you have to kind of work to get it back to that 50-50.
yeah. That's it. I
Otherwise,
mean,
it's just too easy to buy cases of water and
mm.
drink from the bottled water.
And you're saving money as well. Like bottled water packs are, all adds up, doesn't it? It's quite
It
expensive when you
does.
look at like
Yep,
it's
it
just
does.
um but like for myself I have like a big metal kind of flask, and I use my tap water and I got into the habit of using that, or from the tap to the glass and just monitoring that way.
Yep.
Um but yeah, there's like you said, there's different ways around it, isn't there? And just being aware of it.
That's
Um
that's the big key. You just need to be aware. And once you're aware, then you can start making these little changes to optimize your health. They don't have to be big changes. They don't have to be completely turning your life upside down. And what I like to talk to people about are making small changes that don't add any more to our plate because
mm,
we're all
mm,
busy people. I
mm,
mean, families, work. I mean, we have a lot of responsibilities. So if I can give someone tips to optimize their health that
mm,
don't add more things to their to-do list,
mm.
that's my goal.
Yeah, definitely. That is, it's definitely what it's all about, isn't it? Trying to help other people and make those differences and in other people's lives. And like you said, it's all these little small things that kind of add together to become big things, aren't they? And like you mentioned, like another one called like movement as well, and how that kind of ties in to like one of your pillars as well.
Yes, yes. Movement is super important. First of all, our bodies love to move. And there are a lot of people that think, well, I walk, so that's good enough. And walking is really great. In fact, one of the last studies that I looked at said that people that walk 30 minutes a day or more reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. And so that's a really good thing to know.
Mm,
But it doesn't reduce the risk of osteoporosis, which is bone loss.
mm,
It doesn't increase your cardiovascular endurance. And walking does not increase your flexibility or your balance. So these are all things that need to be worked on in
mm,
addition to your walking.
mm,
So some of the things that are really good for that are body weight exercises, like doing squats and push-ups,
mm,
because what happens when you use those muscles, there is calcium, there's an electrical
mm,
exchange that happens when you activate those muscles, and calcium goes to those muscles, which then feeds the bones.
mm,
So doing strength exercises, doing body weight exercises or resistance with bands or weights, it not only strengthens your muscles, but it also strengthens your bones.
mm,
And then when you increase your heart rate, that helps your heart to, to be stronger and
mm,
have a greater capacity for working out, for pumping blood more efficiently through your body.
mm,
And then the other one is flexibility and balance. And if you don't routinely work on making sure that joints are flexible and mobile and that you have your balance, then as you age, you are setting yourself up for losing your independent living.
mm,
Because if your shoulders aren't mobile enough where you can
mm,
dress yourself,
mm,
then you can't live by yourself if you can't dress yourself. And if your legs aren't strong enough to get up out of a chair or up off of the toilet, you
yeah.
can't live by yourself.
Mm,
And if you're not strong enough, and if you don't have balance and you are at risk for falling, you can't live by yourself. And so, and I know for a lot of people like you, Adam, you're thinking
mm,
that's years and years away. But
mm,
by the time you hit 30, your body will start to lose muscle mass.
mm,
So if you don't pay attention to it now and make some of these things a habit now, it's
mm,
really hard to undo that when you might be in your 50s or 60s.
mm, mm. Yeah, it's definitely important, isn't it? And it's something that we should think about, as as we live our lives and our well-being and our fitness and our health and all these little things that kind of add up. And I think, like exercise is, there's different ways of exercising, and I think it's so important that we do, incorporate into our lives and, think about, the future and um, how we want to be, in the future. Because I've sometimes seen people who, unhealthy or they're struggling to walk and things like that. And I've always like said to myself, like I feel sorry for them that I won't be like that, I'm going to, look after myself. And it's so important, isn't it? Because it's you if you're healthy and you're okay in yourself and you're well, that links into your personal lives, your business.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
It's just like a, one big domino effect, isn't it?
right. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs
Mm,
who are maybe they're getting a new business off the ground, they're currently working a business, and they have a family. So they're pulled in many directions.
mm,
But if they neglect their health, they're not going to be able to do any one of those things well.
mm.
So it's very important that it's the airplane rule. You've got to take
Yeah.
care of yourself first. You got to put your oxygen mask on first before you help others. And
Mm,
so taking care of your health, again, it doesn't have to be time consuming, especially if you're a busy professional with multiple jobs and a family. It
mm,
doesn't have to be time consuming. Drinking more water, changing the oils that you use,
mm,
getting good quality sleep.
mm,
They don't they don't take any time. Now, putting movement in your day is going to take time,
mm,
but you can easily put extra movement in your day by walking a little bit more, by taking the stairs, by parking further away from some
mm,
place that you're going to. And then in addition to that, even doing 5 minutes a day of a full body cardiovascular exercise will strengthen your legs, your arms, and your
mm,
heart at the same time. And
mm,
some people like to do yoga, which is
mm,
great because then that helps the flexibility, that helps the balance. That also plays into the emotional energy where you learn how to breathe, to release the pent up energy that you have.
mm,
So there are ways to move. Now, again, doing some yoga and putting some cardiovascular movement into your day is going to take some time. But you know what? You can just start with 5 minutes a day. I don't,
mm,
that's the other place where people say, well, I don't have an hour to work out, so I'm not going to work out at all.
mm,
You know what? Maybe you don't have an hour to work out. Maybe life happened today and you've got 10 minutes.
mm,
What can you do in that 10 minutes
mm,
that's going to optimize your health?
mm,
What what cardiovascular thing can you do for 5 minutes, even if it's just 5 minutes of jumping jacks?
mm,
What can you do for 5 minutes? And what 5 minutes of stretching can you do that is going to say, okay, I've done my movement for today.
mm.
Maybe it wasn't an hour, but this is where I got creative and I got my 10 minutes of movement in, and I'm going to give myself grace for that other 50 minutes that I couldn't get in today.
Mm. That's it. It's just like making a little bit of time, isn't it? Just prioritizing, even if you're at work and you take a break, like a little 5 or 10 minute break and doing something. It reminded me of when I was working in this hotel, I was doing like, shift work long hours, and I went to the bathroom or the toilet, and I remember doing press ups for like just a couple of minutes in the toilet because I had to just, have that release because I hadn't done it earlier. I spent like a couple of minutes
Yes.
doing that in the bathroom, like um, for 5 minutes. So
Okay,
it
that's getting really creative, Adam.
yeah yeah
But good for
yeah
you.
it was difficult because it's like we had low staff and we didn't always have the breaks that we needed to. So I was like, I'm gonna do it where in the toilet. A lot of people probably wouldn't do that, but that just reminded me thinking about what you said. It's just a little, making that bit of time, isn't it? And doing it, even
Right,
if it's like
right.
five, and it makes a massive difference as well.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think there are a lot of times that people think, well, what's 5 minutes going to do for me?
Mm,
What's 10 minutes going to do for me? But you'd be surprised how just adding 5 minutes of an exercise where you're getting your heart rate up, how much better that makes you feel.
yeah.
And then maybe it goes from 5 minutes to over weeks to 10 minutes. And
Mm,
then maybe you get it up to 15, and that's where your cap is. Because
mm,
that's all at that point in your life, at that season in your life, maybe that's all your time will allow. And that's
mm,
okay. That's
mm,
really okay. What I talk to clients about is taking a look at every 3 months, revisiting, what am I eating? How am I moving my body? What about my emotional energy? Do I have people in my inner circle that are not in my corner? So are there people that have crept into my life that are toxic that I need to remove? And am I getting the rest that I need? Every 3 months, coming back to those pillars and revisiting them and saying, what is serving me? What is
mm,
serving my body right now where I'm at? And what's not? And getting rid of the things that might not be serving you
mm,
and picking up some new habits. But taking a look at that seasonally, like every 3 months, because
mm,
if you start working on something, if you start eating better over the next 3 months, and then you find that, wow, this thing is really upsetting my stomach. Okay, that's not serving you. Stop eating that,
mm.
But then there are other things that maybe you can look at putting into your diet to replace that thing.
Yeah. No, it's quite powerful, isn't it, when you think about it and when you break it down and you peel back those layers. Not just the diet side of it, but like people in your life and your energy, your emotional energy. Because if you've got the wrong people in your life and they might be negative, that's going to keep you off from that. They might be keeping you awake at night, and then you're not getting sleep, and then yeah.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Sometimes we can't remove all the toxic people from our society, from our circle,
Mm, mm,
but you know what? We can learn to turn the volume way down on those toxic people. And
mm,
maybe that's what we need to do. If we can't push them outside of our circle, push them to the outer limits and turn their volume down.
mm. Yeah, definitely, definitely, it's important. And I was just thinking as well, like, do you have any favorite books that you like to read at all, or anything like that, or you've read?
Well, probably one of my favorites that I've read recently is Dr. Mark Hyman's book on what the heck should I eat.
That's a good title.
It is a good title, and I like it because it breaks down all the different foods. It breaks down every category of food, I should say. Vegetables and fruits and grains and dairy and beverages and sugars. It breaks everything down. It gives you the good and the bad about each one. And then you get to choose, okay, is this a food that I really want to continue to eat?
Mm,
So, and he doesn't talk, sometimes in the books that I read, they get very technical, and that's not the way he writes. So it's a very easy read, and it's something that I can continue to go back to and use as a reference when I'm dealing with some of my clients. So
mm.
I do like that book.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a really great book, and I definitely have to check it out. And I think it's great, like reading, you can take really good, advice and learning, and you know, uh, other people's perspective on things, can't you, and apply it to things that you're doing. And I was thinking as well, do you have any kind of like role models or mentors, whether that's professionally, personally, like now or growing up, anyone like that at all?
I would have to say, oh, that's a hard one.
It's fine if you can only
Um,
think of like one person, it's fine.
yeah. Some of the mentors that I have, like one of them is Marie Forleo.
Yeah, she's great.
She is great. And she wrote a fabulous book called Everything is Figure Outable. And I I really admired her from the time I started watching her
Mm,
on her TV, the book that she wrote. I've seen her speak in public. She's just full of so much energy,
mm,
and she's so empowering. She makes you feel like whatever you want to accomplish, you can do. You just
mm,
have to figure it out.
mm,
There is a way, there is a path, and
mm,
you can figure it out.
mm. Yeah, she's a really great person. I think that's a really great example. And I I read that book as well, and it's like she mentioned like everything is kind of figure out that you'll find a way, you find a way around it, and
Right.
she's like I said, has all that drive and energy, and um, yeah, that's a great example. And yeah, I was just thinking as well, like where can people find you on like social media and like your website or that kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah. So I am on LinkedIn,
Mm,
and it's Jane.Wenning, Wenning on LinkedIn. And then my website is the number four dash pillarshealth.com.
that's awesome. And what I'll do, I'll put those links in the description for people to find as well. And yeah, no, it's been great having you on the podcast, Jane. And I'm really grateful to have you on. And I think you're doing an awesome job in everything that you're doing. And I wish you continued success in what you're doing. And I think it's really important to talk about these things and to think about these things that we spoke about. Um, in our lives, because we all got our own health and our own things going on, and we have to look after our health if we want to have a fulfilled life.
Right, right. So if anybody goes to my website, one of the things that they can download
Mm,
is a productivity secrets. So there's 4 tips on there, one for each one of my pillars,
mm,
how they can work towards better health without adding more to their plate.
mm.
And they can download that and start implementing some of those strategies right away.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely what I'll do is as well I'll kind of screenshot it and I'll put it on my social media if you like, and I can put that out for people to see as well,
Yeah,
and
that would be
I'll
great.
share stuff. Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. Nice, but yeah, but it's been great talking to you, Jane, and yeah, I wish you all the best in your day and everything that you're doing. Really appreciate your time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate coming on and talking to you.
No, you're welcome. It's great to have you on, and we can always do these in the future if you want to, to talk about any other topics or anything.
Yes, yes, because
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
so much information in each one of these pillars
Mm,
to help
mm,
people optimize their health. And
mm,
especially with nutrition,
mm,
it's so confusing. So
mm,
taking some of the confusion out of what should I eat, what shouldn't I eat, and why.
mm. Yeah. No, definitely. Sounds great to me. Sounds great. But no, all the best in your day and you take care.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Adam.
You're welcome. Take care.